do you have a lot of people DMing you like, hey, Steve, like teach me the process, like how this is done, or people who are trying to get into your crew and like, do you teach classes on this? Like, what's that process?
We have a failed company. It's called the Garage Learning. We had a Kickstarter. We tried. We really tried. Where we were trying to, once again, inspire, either side of the equation, right? You have the engineer that is just like, I'm so bored in my engineering job. I want to do that big creative awesome thing. And it's like, cool, man, but so go to film school. It's like, so much of it needs that base to it. It's like way easier to go from the creative side to the engineering side without a thing to drive it. Like the engineer without the scientist is kind of like, they don't have a purpose, So I think it's usually the other way around. I think is easier as far as like creative leads the technology. Occasionally, like a new technology comes out that then could be like allow for new things. But I answer almost every DM on Instagram that I get to. I very much like to support new people. We have interns at the studio. We do a lot of stuff with students and tours and stuff like that to show them. Now it's actually really cool in our complex. We are NYU's opening their Martin Scorsese virtual production film school for Tisch. So we're already talking to them about doing collaborative stuff with their students and the virtual production and all that stuff. Yeah, very cool. But yeah, no, we generally want to inspire, and people have reached out so many times, like, you inspired me to go down this whole path and buy a robot. I was like, ooh, we should have reached out first. No.
I think that's the way I reached out to you. I was like, hey, I don't mean any offense by this. You want to come on our show?
Yeah. So then you obviously see there's a growing market for this stuff. Like it's only going to get bigger.
There's a lot of people that are excited by the idea, but once they realize how difficult it is,
it's a ton of work.
It is really hard. It is really, and there's so many layers that have to be right. Like I always say, like if I didn't have those 10 years as a still photographer first, like I could never do what I do. Like I needed to understand how to light food, how to deal with food, how to produce food shoots, like beverage and all the intricacies of just that as one frame as a still photographer, to be able to make that happen with the camera whipping around and all the other things that are happening, right? It's like, it's something that you build over time. As I say, every shoot I get smarter, right? Like it's not something you jump into to where I'm at right now. I didn't jump into it either, right? Like I started as a still photographer, then I got my first Canon 5D Mark II and started shooting video on it. Originally did my first necessary music video. You have to, get into film, you have to do music video or documentary. You choose one.
It's the path.
Something that doesn't need sound to start, right? So actually I did a music video for this girl that eventually got famous, which is amazing. And then you build over it. You got to build over time. And so I feel like nowadays, so many of the young kids are like, I want to do it now. And it's just like, yeah, you could do a half-assed version of it now. And it's amazing to me what you could do on your iPhone with really good After Effects and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, man, find your path, dude. Don't do what I do. Do what you do. And that's the number one thing I tell people. It's like, find inspiration in what I do and then make it your own. That's
don't try to replicate the shot. Just build on it.
Yeah, don't do a bad version of what I did.
I feel like there's a lot of layers because the market's there for it. There's a high demand, but the patience of Gen Z is a factor, and then the fact that you have to also think about the rigging system, right? Because I think you also had a trampoline on one of your.
Oh, so many things. Yeah. We play with all sorts of things to throw stuff and whatever, whether it be rubber or bouncing or not. It's but no, I think it is the reality that it's the journey, not the end place, right? Like leverage what you know today and the equipment you have today. You don't need the fancy thing to make the best image you could understand how to make. It's like, I only have my first camera was serious camera was like a Red Epic Dragon. It's like, okay, that'll do 240 frames or whatever it was. It's like, okay, how do I make this shot for this brand, Cheetos, whatever it is, work with 240 frame camera? How do I change physics, or how do I concentrate on a moment that works? Because you could do that, it's like you have to bend the creative to the stuff you have.
It seems like it has to be like a really collaborative effort. Like if you can't figure something out, that's why you have Matt. If he can't figure something out, that's why you've got all of you guys. Like you're saying, the creative, you need that. Yes. The engineering comes later. It's like all of you guys must have these crazy solutions for things. So it's like that.
And sometimes it's like, okay, the camera does this, the rig does this, and it's just like, oh wait, how do we get a light in there? It's like, without the camera shadowing it as the robot moves, and so it really all has to be, and coming together, and how big does the background. So we actually have resident production designer in our space as well too, because it's just like, oh, okay, how can we do that as well? It all has to come together, you know, and if the food doesn't look right, it all falls flat, you know, and that's the challenge to it all is like there's you could do it in CGI, and it's going to look CGI, or you could do it really hard way. Like I choose to do it the hard way because to me it's worth the effort, right?
More satisfying.
It's the magic too.
Yeah,
but you have to really want to do it that way. Really, like you have to see the art in that, right? And that's the thing. It's like I am making art first. You know, yes, I'm using all this stuff and whatever it is, and once again, there's times where just like the technology isn't doing it right, you know, and I'll go in there and I'll put my hands on the thing and just like, all right, here we go. And funny enough, actually just to shoot, you know, we call it the human assist, where like where a rig isn't quite doing what it's like, oh, okay, we had this thing that was like launching paint at a like container of paint or whatever it is from behind, is splashing it. And it's just like, we had tested it with water. We never tested it with paint. And the paint was so much harder and thicker that it just was like falling short of it every time. And I was just like, we need more power. And he's like, Matt's like, I give it all the power. You know? And I'm like, all right, I'm going in there. So I literally grabbed the arm of the catapult and I'm just like, when you fire it, I'm just going to help push it, you know?
Oh, nice.
And oh my God, it was great until like afterwards, like, oh my God, that was so great. And then it splashed all over me. I was like covered in paint, you know, whatever. Let's
go again.
I'm just like, let's go. That shirt still is stained, you know, today. Yeah, it's just like, all right, it's working. Like, let's just go. Who cares?
On the wall.
We just got to get through the shot, you know, like our rigs only have to work as long as, you know, okay, moving on. Great. Done. It could fall apart and it doesn't matter.
I guess that's interesting too, Kyle. You said like you have to be creative before an engineer, because an engineer is going to think about how you build this thing to last forever.
Oh yeah, a real engineer. Oh, forget about it. It was like, no. It just has to be good enough for like 2 hours.
It has to last. It's got to last for this 30-minute thing, and then if it breaks at 40 minutes, who cares?
They will over-engineer the hell out of stuff. It's like, no. It's not going to be used every day for a year. It's like, no, it's going to be used once for 2 hours and we're done. Yeah. So it is a definitely.
So you're like running things at the theoretical limit of like what it probably can handle, especially like with the electricity. You're saying you're like, these LEDs are like, we can turn them on for 15 seconds and that's it.
They might overheat. Yeah.
30 seconds they're on fire. Like,
exactly. Like, don't go to lunch while you're,
Literal fire watch.